Conference plays here. God, that feels good to say. Illinois starts their season where nobody wants to start their conference season, at the RAC, the house formerly known as the RAC, against Rutgers. I've got Brian Rauf from Heat Check CBB here with me in for Carter Elliott today. Carter's been a little under the weather this week. I know we have a lot of Illinois fans who watch this channel, and I don't know how much they listen to our daily podcasts or anything. So for those that don't know this, we're collaborating with the fine gentlemen over at Heat Check this year to do a bunch of game previews, game recaps, both for Big Ten teams and outside of the Big Ten. So go over to the channel, subscribe to the channel, make sure you're tuning into all of the college basketball content we're putting out. But if you see some faces that aren't me and that goofy 6'7" idiot Carter, that's why. We've got some different talent that we've added to our. It's like the transfer portal, right? We went out and added our Marcus Damask.
We'll go with that.
Is that disrespectful? If I compare you to Marcus Damask, do you feel like that's a compliment or do you feel like that's an insult?
I'll choose to take it as a compliment, so we'll go with that.
Illinois fans will tell you it's a huge compliment, for the record. So, all right, look, it's fun. We've been doing previews for Southern and for Western Illinois and Valpo, trying to drum up, hey, is this Real Housewives? Do we like the body language? All of that. The truth is there hasn't been much to worry about for Illinois since Marquette was here the night of the Champions Classic on November 14th. Now you've got something real to worry about again. And I don't think this Rutgers team is necessarily even a good basketball team right now. And Rutgers fans might be upset with me for saying that, but I have some pretty serious concerns with their offense. That should be no surprise. It's a Steve Peichel team. So like on paper, Illinois is clearly the better team here, right?
Yes. But I think that's the case in most games Rutgers plays and probably has played for the last year or two, right? The difference is that Rutgers does not have the individual offensive guys like they've had the last couple of years, but their way of winning is the same, where they want to drag you into the mud and make you play an extremely physical game that, you know, borders on not being basketball, right? Takes you completely out of rhythm, and that's how they win. And this team can still do that, or has at least shown they can do that. The question is if they can score more than 55 points.
Yeah, which is a tough question for this team right now. One of our favorite breakout guys in the offseason, Carter and I, was Derek Simpson. And he started the year as bad as he possibly could have. He had 2 points in back-to-back games. They had the loss to Princeton on opening night. He wasn't even attempting three-pointers. He wasn't getting to the free throw line. We came on here, I forget what it was for, but basically begged him to start shooting threes. He's been making some threes. He has back-to-back games with 2 threes made. He's been in double digits now for 4 straight games. And coincidentally, the Rutgers offense has looked like it has some signs of life now that the only dynamic scorer they have on the roster has showed up, right?
He's got to be the guy. He's the only one.
He has to be the guy. The other one I would just flag, because Rutgers fans are going to want me to mention him, is the freshman Gavin Griffiths. Now, if you haven't seen this kid play, if you're an Illinois fan listening to this video, you're going to be really confused about 8 minutes into this game when the kid in the goggles has made 2 3-pointers in 2 attempts, and he's kind of flying around. This kid looks like remember the show Pros versus Joes? He looks like a Joe. He plays like a pro. I think he's one of the best freshmen in this conference. Would you give him the credit at this point? Because he hasn't been super efficient. He's only 8 for 28 on the season from the 3-point line, but he had a 25-point game in their win against Boston. And I think Rutgers sort of treats him like he's their second best offensive player. Do you think that's fair?
That is fair. I think this game will tell us if that's out of necessity or out of legitimacy, right? Because Rutgers is 5-1, also haven't played the most difficult schedule, right? So if you're going to be where Rutgers has been and maintain an NCAA tournament level of play, or at least borderline NCAA tournament level of play, you need him to do that kind of thing more efficiently against good teams like Illinois, right? The fact he's been so inefficient against bad teams, there has been flashes of efficiency, but largely inefficiency against bad teams makes me wonder and gives me some pause that he can still produce the same way against this level of competition.
So I feel obligated to ask this, and I don't want anyone who hears this question to interpret this as if I'm trying to lead you anywhere. I just feel obligated. The journalist in me feels obligated to ask this. You said we've seen them do it against teams. We haven't seen them do it against good teams like Illinois. Are we sure that Illinois is good?
We don't know that they're bad.
For sure do not know that they're bad. Do we know that they're good?
We don't know that they're bad. I think we think they are good. And I think it's safe to think that they are good based on how the guy returned, played last year, and the fact that they gave Marquette something of a battle, right? You know, you can go back and forth, and I think both fan bases can tell you how close that game actually was or was not, but it was in a spot to get dicey at times, right? And we know Marquette is good. So both of those factors, I think, I feel comfortable assuming that Illinois is good, but it is an assumption at this point. Like we're a month in, it's still a while before you can really grab a resume, but there's no resume win right now. Like they're the king of the good loss.
Yeah, their resume win was the charity exhibition, right? And they looked great against Kansas. And right. I don't mean to make jokes about it because I straight up do not know how much we should value charity exhibitions at this point. Like we learned that Michigan State's not very good against Tennessee in their charity exhibition. With Kansas and Illinois, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, Illinois beat the number 1 team in the country. But also at this point, Kansas barely looks like a top 10 team in the country to me. So like, it's one of those things I feel like we could have been convinced that both these teams are really high level when in reality, maybe both these teams are good teams, just not great teams. And like I said, I do think Illinois is good. I also think we have nothing they've done in the actual regular season thus far that points to them being a contender of any sort. And that's a result of the schedule that they've played, right? Like their best win to this point was a 9-point game against Oakland where they were trailing for much of that game. And Oakland looks pretty good right now.
Right. It would not surprise me if Illinois is second best team in the Big Ten behind Purdue, right? But you could say that about past Illinois teams as well. It also wouldn't surprise me if they were sixth best team in the Big Ten. Like Illinois has been plagued by that kind of variance the past few years where you have the tantalizing upside and just some frustrating low moments where you're like, I don't understand why this is happening.
Yeah.
This team could be in both categories, but this is your test in a tough test to kind of prove your floor and prove your toughness, right? Because Rutgers is going to make you win ugly, particularly in Piscataway, if you are going to beat them. And that's something Illinois has not always done or wanted to do.
Yeah, this is one of the most important games on the schedule for me because Rutgers historically has made great teams look awful in this building. Like it's happened before. They force you to play a yucky brand of basketball. But if Illinois can somehow find a way to wade through the mud and come out with a win here, like I think we feel, one, validation, but two, pretty secure and excited about the upside for the future of this team because they've got a gauntlet coming up. They've got Florida Atlantic on a neutral next week. They go on the road to Tennessee, a pissed off Tennessee team, by the way. And it's one of those losses where, or I don't want to call it a loss, but it's one of those games where if you lose, couldn't we see things spiraling pretty quickly in the next week? Not that we're getting ahead of ourselves. We need to play the games, but this has sort of been the turning point of Illinois seasons where, they're looking great in the non-con and then some adversity hits. And now we're questioning everything. It's a scary week upcoming for Illinois.
It's a tough 3-game stretch. And on paper, this looks to be the easiest test, right? So if you fail the easiest test, natural alarm bells are going to go off, especially with a fan base that is as, I think, dedicated, knowledgeable, and sometimes irrational as Illinois, so like this is one where it's important to, I think, put on a good performance.
100%. So we were talking about, what do we know? Do we know they're good? Do we know they're not good? Like so many unknowns with Illinois right now. Here's a couple things I want to run through that I feel extremely confident that we know already. We know Terrence Shannon is the top 5 player in the country. I think that's not an argument right now. And I know there's a lot of good players in the country. For my money, he's a first-team All-American. You can go look at the numbers. You can just watch him play. There are not 5 other players that I think impact games as much as he does on both ends right now. 2, we know Luke Goody is an elite shooter right now. And the attempts are finally there with him. He's always had the numbers, 46% on the season, 37 attempts thus far. He's shooting 7 to 9 threes per game the last 4. He's made 3 or more threes in his last 4 games. He's still coming off the bench. But I think you've got two weapons there that you know what you're going to get night in and night out from that I think are winning team type weapons. Everything else on this team is like totally up in the air because Coleman Hawkins is out. He's been out. We don't expect him to play for this game, but if he does play, he's definitely playing through something. There's rumors that he may need an operation to get fully healthy again, and Coleman's trying to play through it. That's the latest that I've heard. Outside of that, it's guys who have shown up some games. Guerrier's been great some games. Damask has been great, I think, once. Ty Rodgers has had good games. And then some games like Gibbs-Lawhorn's in. Sometimes he's out. Some games Dane Danger's in. Sometimes he's out. So their depth is there. But it's it's like two chess pieces. We know what they are, right? A king and a queen.
Right.
Is that enough to win this game?
Yes. Is it enough to beat FAU and Tennessee? I don't know. But for this game, that's enough.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So I'll make my prediction and then you can give yours. All this said, all my questions I'm raising, that's just host mode, folks. Illinois is winning this game. Here's my prediction. I'm looking for the Illinois jacket. Let me grab this real quick, Brian. All right. That's the script Illinois. If you can see that, I'll put that on while we talk here. I think this is a turning point where all the people who yelled at me all offseason for questioning the vibes and for questioning the mentals and how good of these people are, I think people are going to laugh at me and victory lap me here. Because this is a win I think Illinois gets that feels different than wins they've had in the last couple of years at this point in the season. First of all, Rutgers wants to play this game in the mud. They want this to be a defensive, just grind you out game. Illinois loves that. That's how Illinois wants to play this year. You want to get in the mud? Fine. Illinois will get in the mud. Two, Derek Simpson, he's a tiny little guy, man. I know he can, he's taller than you might think on paper, but this is exactly the type of matchup that why Brad Underwood likes to have Ty Rodgers at point guard. I think we're going to see Ty be able to abuse Derek Simpson offensively. And I know Simpson might not guard him. They'll probably put somebody else on him. But if it's not Simpson, is it Gavin Griffiths? Like, is it Hyatt? Because if you're going Hyatt on Rodgers, then you're leaving an even bigger wing. Like Damask or Shannon are going to have to be guarded by Simpson. So the big jumbo lineup, I think, is going to kill Rutgers in this game. And I like the versatility here. Ultimately, like, Griffiths is not physically ready for a game like this on the wing with Illinois' wings.
I don't have an Illinois jacket as I'm looking around. But this is an Illinois now in February, right? I don't know if the outcome will be different in February, but this feels like a business-like win for Illinois.
Yeah, and the vibes are totally different if they get it. All right, we normally end our Illinois segments with a classic me to Carter Elliott, ILLINI. So I want to give that a try real quick. ILL.
INI.
You heard it here first. We'll be back to recap it on the Sleepers Media channel, everybody.